Okay, here we have Rancho quick struts for a 2010 Ford F-150 4x4, and I'm gonna attempt a do-it-yourself installation, so follow along with me. Got them off eBay for $178 a piece, brand new in the box from Rancho. Got two different part numbers for a left and a right. Alright, F-150 4x4. Stock ride height is like 37¼ inches from the ground to the fender well. So we'll see what happens. Okay, here's the tools that I think you're going to need so far. We'll see if I need anything else as I get started, but there's a 1/2-inch drive impact gun, a rubber mallet, large screwdriver to take the hubcap off, a 1/2-inch socket wrench, 3/8 socket wrench, a 1/2-inch drive torque wrench for the lower strut bolt, because that has to be torqued to like 351 pounds. Then you need a 15mm socket for the upper strut nuts, an 18mm socket for the sway bar link, an 1 1/16 for the lower strut bolt, and a 1 3/16 for the lower strut bolt nut. Alright, so let's get started. I wanted to show you something cool that Ford did. Up under the frame rails, they put an arrow. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. There's an arrow cut into the frame rail to tell you where to put your jack stands. I thought that was pretty cool. Alright, we'll be back. Okay, here's a side-by-side comparison. The old strut on the left, new strut on the right. And as you can see, the shock length is pretty much identical. And so you get the ride height by the spring load. This is why they say it's better to use a strut style lift versus a spacer lift, because it doesn't put stress on your ball joints and tie rod ends. So bear that in mind when you're thinking about a leveling kit. Okay, I got the upper control arm nut off, which is 13/16 by the way, and that came off fairly easy. I did have to hit this control arm right here to get it to pop out of the ball joint. And the lower strut nut came off. That one was pretty hard to get off. You need a deep well 1 3/16 for that. Got the upper strut nuts off. Those came off fairly easy. And I supported the lower control arm with my jack just so it wouldn't drop down when I tapped on that control arm. So I'm going to loosen this jack now, and it should drop down pretty easy. You can see the strut comes out of its socket. Move the jack out of the way. You gotta push down on it a little bit to get it out. See what happens. I'll be back. Okay, I'm having a little bit of trouble getting the strut out. I got the lower bolt out so it could give it a little bit more length, and I am having to use a crowbar to get underneath the strut pocket to pry it out. It's not real tough, it's just there's not enough clearance, so it should come out once I get those strut bolts underneath the pocket there. Alright. Okay, I got the new strut in, and after some time I finally figured out that you got to put the upper part of the strut inside the pocket first, and then the lower part of the shock slides up into the pocket down there. On Rancho's website, I think it shows a 2-wheel drive truck, and the strut drops out from the top because you don't have the four-wheel drive length right here that keeps this axle keeps the control arms from dropping far enough for the top of the strut to fall out. So just a side note there. Alright, got everything back put together, and I got the lower strut nut on. I got it torqued down as hard as I can with cheater bar, which should be about 300 foot-pounds of torque. Alright, we'll go to the other side. Okay, so here I did the lower part of the strut first. I took it out of the pocket, and then that left enough clearance for the top strut bolts to clear the pocket. So you saw that I had a hard time on the other side, and I figured out that if you take the bottom of the strut first and then the top part falls out. Alright, I'll be back. Okay, to get the upper control arm bolt through the hole, I'm having to put a pry bar in there and pull down on it to get it to seat. Just a note to that, if it seems like it doesn't want to go in all the way, you got to put a little pry bar, put pressure on it, and that keeps the bolt from turning as you tighten the nut. Alright, we're getting close. Okay, there's the right side. Got it on, everything torqued down, put back together. Incidentally, do not remove the strut nut in the middle. That is under a lot of pressure, and the factory says do not remove that nut, even though some directions are a little confusing on that. I think that's when you're just changing the coil spring. So there's no need for that on these quick struts. Okay, here's the left side all done. Put the wheels back on it and check our ride heights.